By no means are we at a bottom yet, because the one thing I remember clearly from 2018, after we talked in 2017, is when we did hit the bottom, people were like, there were a lot of people that were giving up on Bitcoin at that point, and we haven't seen that yet. So it does make me think there's that one final flush where finally you'll get to see that, which is a kind of that mentality. Oh, I mean, it's just I'm trading crypto, I'm trading stocks, I have a fund. I mean, there's so many things that I got to keep an eye on. Normally I say traders only need like 3 screens, but with running the different companies and everything, you definitely have to add a few more in so you can keep track of things. So especially like even now, comparatively to 10 years ago, I use cash so much less. I mean, it's almost never do I use cash. Like think about it, how people used to have those big like piggy banks that when they'd go out to the store, they'd get like, you get 31 cents change and you just put it in your piggy bank and it would grow or whatever. And then you could change it in at some point. I feel like the last time I got coins was like maybe once every 3 months I'm getting something, that I'm buying in dollars, like versus a credit card or versus other things. So it's really, I mean, in all fairness, I think that's the way it's all going, right? Everything's going towards credit cards, but even more so towards blockchain and towards some other method, which, by the way, they're going to be able to track. I mean, obviously cash, it's a little, I mean, so you almost wonder if this avenue is now more of the government actually is like, all right, as long as we can track it, this is better for us. And then it makes me more nervous. I'm like, all right, well, maybe I should buy a little bit more physical gold and silver and maybe keep some cash on hand. I don't know. Like there are certain, I mean, it's a delicately balanced scale, right? Yes. Where you want people to be able to be tracked down that are doing things illegally or paying, but at the same time, you don't want the government to overreach. So the question is, right, and I don't know the answer to this, but where is that fine line, right? And how do you keep that line? Because it always seems like, when the government comes in, at first it's good, right? It's like, okay, they're just doing the right amount, but then slowly they kind of get in a little bit more and more. And it's just like, how do you keep that from happening? Because I'm a huge fan of getting some sort of regulatory actions in on crypto, because I think it's going to help crypto. Like, you want grandma and grandpa to invest in Bitcoin. Well, they're not doing it unless there's FDIC insurance on a Bitcoin, on a spot account, right? Because there's too much risk of them getting catfished or whatever, and then they lose all their money. And same thing with pension funds. Like, no pension fund with trillions of dollars is going to throw $500 million or billions in without knowing the framework that the government wants. So those are all things that will draw more money in. But then how do you keep it just at that point and not have the overreach? I think honestly, one of the reasons why Bitcoin's gotten so quiet recently, and it's been really quiet, is that I think the market is expecting we're going to get some more framework on regulation. So you're not seeing big buyers come in, but at the same time, the sellers have been exhausted, at least for now. And so people are just waiting. When are we going to hear more information? And by the way, one thing I've said is that I think that when we do get that framework and the SEC releases the framework on the rules, and again, Bitcoin probably a commodity, most other things a security, but that's fine. But the question I have is, are there new rules for crypto securities that are different from stock securities like Apple or Microsoft? And I think that's what we're going to have to see. But I do think that once that happens, you do see a relief and a move up in crypto at that point. I do think that's I think that is the key, is to embrace it and then find out all the good that it can do in the world. And again, I don't know necessarily the different avenues, but God knows there's a lot of ways that blockchain technology can be applied to make things better and safer, really, probably too. Yeah. So I do think, I think I've been impressed because the equity markets, the stock market has been heading generally down and Bitcoin's really been going sideways. So it's showing us glimpses of what it could be. Yeah. I do worry that it's not quite mature enough yet to fully kind of disconnect from the risk asset style that it's been kind of caught in. But there's no doubt that it's showing us glimpses of what it can do. And that's great. Bitcoin would be the equivalent of a 13-year-old. Yes. So your 13-year-old can show signs of maturity, but at the same time, they're still going to be immature because they're a 13-year-old sometimes too. So you're seeing that kind of mid-level where sometimes it's doing the right thing, sometimes it's still kind of crazy. Usually I can set something so it doesn't happen, but that's okay. But the bottom line is this computer's on, and this is the important one I'm talking to you on.
Yeah,
So
let's get it.
So let's look at the charts, and I want to show you, and this is number one, we have this beautiful, what we call a wedge pattern. So at least in the short term, if we can break above, I think you have a shot to maybe get up to about 25,000. So that's kind of cool if we can get the breakout, but please note it hasn't happened yet. You're literally stuck in this tiny little triangle niche, and we need to see that breakout occur. But going back to what you were saying about like where we could be in the cycle and how it's just getting so quiet, look at what happened back in the previous cycle of 2017. And this is my only concern. So basically we had that big fall down here from here's your 2017 high, lots of chop on the way down. And then look at what happened here. It just goes to sleep and then sleep. And look at how tight it got. And then all of a sudden,
it
right?
fell off the bed.
That's my only fear, right? Is that we're doing that kind of period. And then if it does start to break, it's going to be a big break. And then but the positive is, all right, let's always look at the positives here.
Okay.
The positive is that was the final flush before the bottom. So even if this is what we're doing right here, at least if it dips, I'm a buyer. Heck yeah, I'm a buyer. Because at that point, then if we zoom out, look at what ends up happening, right? It bottoms out, curls up, and then this was just the beginning of the bigger bull run that eventually led us up to the current, double top high here. So, but you hope it's different this time, so we'll just have to see. Let's be fair, right? This is the first bear market for Bitcoin with no Fed printing of money. So I think we just have to be aware that like a lot of people are saying, okay, well, we should bottom here soon and start moving up because past cycles generally lasted about 12 months before they bottomed out, right? Well, the problem is that all those past cycles, there was money printing that helped us kind of push it up. So just to be on the safe side, I'm preparing myself for a slightly longer bear market just because the Fed's not bailing us out. Now, if the Fed came out and started lowering interest rates next week or whenever, then I think, all right, now it's bull on again in Bitcoin. But we just have to see with the Fed here because it's kind of the first time this is happening. But the question is if we didn't have COVID, would we have ever gotten this high on Bitcoin? I don't know.
Yeah,
that's the crazy thing about it. By no means are we at a bottom yet, because the one thing I remember clearly from 2018 after we talked in 2017 is when we did hit the bottom, people were like, there were a lot of people that were giving up on Bitcoin at that point, and we haven't seen that yet. So it does make me think there's that one final flush where finally you'll get to see that, which is a kind of that mentality. Now, in the short term, I kind of wouldn't be surprised if we did see a short-term relief rally. And if we could just break above this line, we would get it. I mean, I think you'd get a little short squeeze even above it. But again, even if we pop up, then I still, for me, it's still telling me further downside, which again, I hate to say, I hate to be that person, but also the charts are what I follow, and it still doesn't look like we've fully bottomed out yet. But as I said, buying opportunity. People were like on Twitter, they're like, you know what, if Bitcoin gets to 20 again, oh my God, I'm going to sell my kidney to buy Bitcoin, right? Well, here we are at 20, and I don't see anyone selling their kidney. It does, like more so at highs and lows. So for instance, making higher highs on lower volume is a concern, because when you have lower volume but you're making higher highs, like we saw in October, November from the April, May highs, that tells you that big money is not buying in heavily, right? So generally we want to follow the bigger money, the whales, and because they're the ones that have the ability to get the research, that know, they're kind of the smarter money. And so that's a good indicator. That was showing us in October, November to be very, very careful. And then also at lows, when you see big flushes on heavy volume, you're usually flushing out a lot of the weaker hands, and if you get a bottoming tail, what's called a bottoming tail, it tells you that there's big money buying all that up, and that's why the price is bouncing back. So there are signals with volume that you do pay attention to. I think the big things like support resistance lines. So for instance, it's amazing to look at the charts and just see how levels kind of play out over and over again. So you can connect, literally you can connect this high to this high, and it gave you the exact high here, the high here, and then right here. Wow. And one of the things I know from trading for 20 years is that the more you hammer on a trend line, the weaker it becomes. So the more you hammer on this upside line, it's essentially like a door that you're hammering on. Let's say you got to break through that door, your kitty's inside, the house is on fire, and the door is locked. you bang that door as hard as you can. Probably first, second, third time, you're not breaking it down. But if you hit it enough, you will break it down. And so that's why I'm keeping an eye. The more hits we get on this upper trend line, if we can pop out, then that would be bullish. The problem is, same thing works on the downside line here, which would be a breakdown. So if we start hammering on this lower line, that would be problematic. But just looking at some of these other trend lines, I want to just show you this here. Yes. Like, look at this trend line here, right? So you can see you broke below this line and then you retraced into it, you kissed it, you retraced, and then that was the beginning of the next move down. You could also look at this low here, and then look at how price fell right into it and then sideways until it broke. So it's giving you, the charts are amazing like that. They give you levels to be aware of. Again, just think about where we bottomed out here, right around 20,000, which we all know was the 2017 high. And there's that line right there. So I'm a big believer in trend lines. You can see I don't have a lot of wacky signals on my chart like a lot of people do. Yeah. I just draw my own stuff and just read the charts. If Bitcoin's going to dump out, I'm looking at this as maybe my low pivot. And notice how you go all the way back to the lows before the first bull rally in 2017, and it connects right to this low here, which then connects to this low. So by thinking about that, if we did dump out, where would I be a buyer of Bitcoin? Right at that level. So right away, it gives you an idea about, okay, well, now I know where, if we get there, we should see some sort of bounce, because every time we've hit that line, we've had some sort of bigger move up. So it kind of starts to give you that insight about, well, where should I buy? Where if Bitcoin starts its next bull rally, could it potentially go all the way up to that line, which would be pretty amazing, right? And that would be 100. I'm guessing right now it's close to 100,000, you would think. Looks 9, like just right now, just below 10,000. What? That is insane. And in all fairness, you'll have on the way up, you'll have resistance at double top up here. But I mean, again, think about that, right? Think about buying at, let's say, 10,000, and then this thing, 10x's to 100,000 in the next bull run. That's pretty cool.